Most people think power looks loud, quick comebacks, instant reactions, sharp responses. But when something happens, and you don't react immediately, when you pause instead of explode, when you go quiet, instead of defending yourself, have you ever wondered why? And why it unsettles other people more than if you had yelled? If you don't react immediately, there's a chance you've developed something most people never fully build: psychological control. You've probably been told you're too quiet, that you're slow to respond, that you don't say enough. Maybe people mistake your pause for weakness, awkwardness, or a lack of confidence. But what they don't see is what's happening inside you during that silence. You're not empty. You're processing. And that changes everything. For some people, reactions are automatic. Their nervous system fires, their mouth moves, and only later do they think about what they said. But you operate differently. Your brain doesn't rush to discharge emotion. It absorbs it first. That pause you take, it's not hesitation, it's regulation. Psychologically, this often comes from cognitive wiring shaped by experience. Somewhere in your development, reacting impulsively wasn't safe, useful, or effective, so your nervous system adapted. Instead of escalating, it learned to scan. Instead of attacking, it learned to analyze. Instead of reacting outwardly, it processed inwardly. That's not weakness. That's advanced emotional processing. When something intense happens, your system doesn't immediately hand control over to emotion. There's a microsecond gap. In that gap, you observe. You measure tone. You calculate consequences. You run simulations in your head. You ask yourself, what's really happening here? That gap is psychological power. Most people don't have it. Their amygdala reacts before their prefrontal cortex has time to think. But you've built a stronger bridge between emotion and cognition. Your emotional processing system and your rational brain work together instead of competing. That's trait number 1. Delayed reactivity is a sign of integrated emotional regulation. Second, you likely have heightened pattern recognition. Because you don't immediately jump into the chaos, you see the patterns others miss. You notice who always escalates. You notice who manipulates through urgency. You notice who pushes buttons to get a reaction. And here's something most people don't realize: many social dynamics are built around triggering others. If someone can control your reaction, they can control the interaction. When you don't react immediately, you interrupt that dynamic. Your silence forces other people to sit with themselves. That's unsettling. Third, your nervous system may be adapted for containment rather than discharge. Some people are wired for expression. Others are wired for containment. Containment isn't suppression. It's the ability to hold emotional energy without spilling it everywhere. That ability often develops in environments where emotional chaos existed. If you grew up around unpredictability, criticism, or emotional volatility, your system may have learned that calm observation was safer than emotional expression. You became the stabilizer. Over time, that adaptation turns into something rare: composure under pressure. While others escalate, you stay measured. While others rush, you pause. That doesn't mean you don't feel deeply. In fact, you probably feel more than you show. But you've built a psychological defense that filters expression through evaluation. Fourth, you likely have strong internal referencing. Many people depend on external cues to decide how to react. They look around the room. They mirror energy. They respond to pressure. But if you don't react immediately, it often means you check in with yourself first. What do I actually think about this? How do I want to respond? That internal pause is identity-based control. You don't let the environment dictate your state. You consult your internal framework before engaging. That's a sign of self-anchoring. And finally, there's something deeper happening. When you don't react immediately, you resist emotional contagion. Emotions spread quickly. Anxiety spreads. Anger spreads. Panic spreads. But you don't automatically absorb and amplify what's thrown at you. There's a psychological membrane between stimulus and response. That membrane is built through awareness. Now here's the twist most people don't see. Your delayed reaction isn't just about control. It may also be about early hyper-awareness. If you grew up needing to read between the lines, predict moods, or anticipate conflict, your brain became highly attuned to subtle shifts. Before you speak, you're scanning micro-expressions, tone changes, inconsistencies. You're mapping the social terrain. That takes cognitive bandwidth. So while others react, you're calculating. And because you've spent years observing before acting, you developed a kind of social intelligence that doesn't need volume to be effective. But here's where it becomes life-changing. People who don't react immediately often struggle with one hidden doubt: am I too passive? You've probably questioned yourself, wondered if you should be quicker, sharper, more assertive in the moment. But psychological control doesn't mean passivity. It means you choose when to engage. The key difference is this: passivity avoids response out of fear. Control delays response out of strategy. Only you know which one you're doing. If your pause is filled with anxiety and self-silencing, that's something to work on. But if your pause is filled with awareness and choice, that's power. Think about the time someone tried to provoke you. Think about the arguments that fizzled because you didn't fuel them. Think about the situations where your calm presence shifted the energy of the room. That's not accidental. That's influence without noise. And here's something even deeper. When you don't react immediately, you protect your identity. You don't let temporary emotions define permanent impressions. You don't hand over your narrative in a heated moment. You maintain authorship over who you are. That level of psychological sovereignty is rare. In a world addicted to immediacy, speed, and reaction, you operate on intention. You are not slow, you are deliberate. You are not weak, you are regulated. You are not disconnected, you are discerning. The world often celebrates loud confidence. But quiet control is a different kind of strength. It's the kind that builds trust, the kind that stabilizes chaos, the kind that sees 3 moves ahead. If this is you, you've probably felt misunderstood for most of your life. People might not realize how much thinking happens behind your silence. They might underestimate you because you don't perform emotion on demand. But the people who pay attention, they notice. They notice that when you finally speak, it matters. They notice that you don't waste words. They notice that you rarely regret what you say. And over time, that builds something deeper than attention. It builds respect. So if you don't react immediately, don't rush to fix it. Refine it. Learn the difference between suppression and strategy. Strengthen your ability to respond intentionally. Practice expressing yourself when you choose to, not when you're triggered. Because psychological control isn't about being emotionless. It's about being self-led. And if you've built that ability, especially in a world that pressures instant reaction, you're not behind. You're ahead. You're operating from awareness instead of impulse. And that makes you rare. If this resonated with something you've always felt, but never fully understood, you're not alone here. There's a reason these patterns keep showing up in your life. And there's a reason you're starting to recognize them now. Stay with that awareness. It's not a flaw. It's your strength.